If I had a problem, I'd be starving. I'd be hawking this watch. I do not have a problem. I enjoy gambling.
Your section for the fixins. You know what I'm talking about? Oh. I want to have a wide variety of sauces and shit. You son of a bitch. You better clean them fixins up right now.
I am never cleaning up your fixins again.
Yeah, well, not quite. Yeah, let's stick to football.
We are back, baby! Am I live?
Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm pumped. You guys are doing a hell of a job here at the Round Robin Pod.
We have my top 10 power rankings I have in 3 categories. I have contenders, the teams that I think right now are good enough to win the Super Bowl. I have downgraded power, so teams that I've downgraded from contenders basically at the start of the season, and then my surprises and like pretenders, teams that are either 2-0 or playing well. And I don't think, actually, yeah, every team in my pretenders list is 2-0, and I don't even know if I'd be surprised if half of them even make the playoffs. So my contenders are the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Bills, and the Packers. The 49ers I did not downgrade at all for losing to the Vikings, and the Chiefs I've downgraded a little for having 2 games where I didn't even think they looked that good. The Texans are not playing well, but they're winning, and I just think Stroud's awesome. The Bills have Josh Allen, who's Superman, like maybe the best. Like, I don't know. Is he better? He's been the best player in the league this year so far. And then the Packers winning that game without Love, with how good their defense looked and how good their coaching staff is, they're in the mix for winning the Super Bowl. So if any of those 5 teams doesn't win the Super Bowl, I think I'd be very, very surprised. Is there anybody you think I left anybody out?
I think the Raiders have a shot at winning.
I know.
I think the Raiders are a team that they have talent everywhere, and they if they build on it, they could win the Super Bowl. I think the Bengals too. I think Joe Burrow is just a guy. When they make the playoffs, you don't want to like. No one's going to want to play the Bengals. Maybe with the Ravens too, but I'm down on the Ravens. Did you say the Lions?
No. So those are so you think the Lions can win the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
You just saw Jared Goff has to pass in both of the first 2 games. Hey, Jared Goff, you got to go win us some games. And they're not even that good when he has to do it.
Last week you're all over the Lions. I think it's an overreaction. I think the Bucs are a really good defense. I think the Bucs are a good team.
I don't think it's an overreaction that going into the week we said, oh, the Lions figured it out. They just need to run the ball and win. And then their coaching staff blew 3 points at the end of the first half and then had Jared Goff throw it 55 times at home, and they lost on the field to the Buccaneers. I don't think it's an overreaction to say that means that they're not good enough to win the Super Bowl, that they're not going to win 4 straight games. Win the Super Bowl.
I wouldn't put that on Jared Goff that they made him throw the ball 55 times. I think
I'm putting it on him. I'm putting it on him that he can't do that. Like if the game says you need to throw a lot to win the Super Bowl, it's not happening. So those are my down. You just mentioned a bunch. My downgraded teams that I've taken out of the contenders list since the season started. And look, they're still technically, obviously contenders. I'm just saying personally, I'm not interested in them. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Lions, Ravens, Bengals, Cowboys, Eagles. The Eagles defense last night was terrible. Their coaching last night was terrible. I still think the Cowboys will have a really good regular season, and I thought it was a fun pick coming into the season to be like, ooh, yeah, the Cowboys will probably have a great season because everybody's been shitting on them. But I'm downgrading them, Bengals, Ravens, Lions. But so the cool thing about this is I still have the 0-2 Ravens and the 0-2 Bengals as, the 6th and 7th best teams in the NFL. They're not worse than the Seahawks because the Seahawks are 2-0. They're still better. Like, if the Vikings or if the Ravens and the Vikings or the Bengals and the Seahawks played on a neutral field tomorrow for the Super Bowl, the Ravens and Bengals would be favored for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then my surprise pretender teams are Chargers, Steelers, Seahawks, Vikings, Buccaneers, and Saints. That's why I've given you a hard time about the Raiders, because I've made a list of the 13 or 14 best teams in the league right now. I forgot to even put them on the list.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are overlooking the Raiders just like that. Like they go through and they never even think about them. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I think I'm early on them. I think by like week 8, everyone's going to be talking about the Raiders, or at least like thinking, oh, wow, like this team, if Minshew plays like that, like their defense is insane. I think their defense is number one. Them and the Steelers, they have like a similar defense to the Steelers. It's really, really good, but nobody sees it yet. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are overlooking the Raiders right now.
And then which 0-2 team do you think is better, the Bengals or the Ravens?
The Bengals.
You think the Bengals are better? Just
Yeah.
so if Bengals and Ravens play neutral field tomorrow, you think it's Bengals -1?
I think it's probably a pick 'em, like where they would set the line,
And
but I would pick
you'd bet
Bengals.
you'd bet the Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
just
why
think
I can't get there with them. I know they even just played really good in KC and everything, but I just can't get there with them. I don't think they're I'm not have not been stoked on any of it really. I think
no,
yeah,
I
I
get
don't
it.
know. Yeah. All right, are the Saints any good?
No, no. Saints aren't good. Saints
Are
are a
the
pretender.
are the Cowboys any good?
No, those are two teams this going into the year. They're not good. They're not. They're dude. Dak getting paid all that money is crazy.
Yeah,
It's
that's gonna
crazy.
be tough for them.
They're sunk.
Cowboys Ravens in Dallas this week.
Ravens.
Cowboys opened as a 1.5 point favorite, and the Ravens have been bet now all the way to I think it's Ravens -1.5. The lines moved 3 points through the zero.
Yeah,
And you're saying that's Ravens are a lock in that game.
yeah. Ravens are much better than the Cowboys.
So my prediction for that game is I think that the Ravens are going to be like one of the most bet public teams next week because it's like they can't go 0-3, and I think the Cowboys are going to beat them, and then I think that the Ravens are still going to make the playoffs. I think they'll be one of the first 0-3 because now that they've extended the season to 17 games, there's so much more room for error. I don't think it's a basically like Cowboys Ravens in a 16-week season or 16-game season could be a loser goes home situation. I don't think it is. So I'd take the Cowboys in that game, but not
I think
by
it's. I think if the Ravens lose, they're definitely not making the playoffs because they have a tough schedule, a really tough schedule. They haven't even played the Bengals yet. They haven't played the Browns yet.
I think they play the Cowboys and then they go Bengals Chiefs back to back. That's the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's pretty tough.
Okay. Wait, no, they already played the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, must be Bengals Steelers or Bengals Bills. Maybe it's the Bills.
2 division games probably, but I think it's much more likely and better for the league if the Ravens win and they're both 1-2 and have shots at the playoffs because those are two teams. I just see that happening rather than I just see that being a better. Not that it's going to be rigged, fixed or anything.
No, but I know what you're saying.
It just makes more sense the way the NFL goes. Like, I know the Bengals or the Ravens going 0-3 would be really, really surprising. And I think it's much more likely that the Ravens win this game, go to 1-2, Cowboys lose another one. It's time to panic, and then maybe they start rattling off some wins. The Cowboys also they still get to play the Giants twice. They still get to play the Commanders twice. They can much more afford to lose this game than the Ravens can.
Okay. So Bryce Young's career is over. He's 19 games. I'm going to take a bit of a victory lap here. I swear, halfway through last season, I was sure that he could not play quarterback in this league. And maybe that's maybe I don't need to gloat about that. Maybe it was really obvious, but I mean, he started either 18 or 19 games and his career is over. They benched him. And they have to, because those guys are not trying to lose their jobs. All the coaches, I mean, everybody else on the team is like you have to bench him. So my question for you is it a bad beat for the Raiders that they're coming home and they get the Panthers, and now the Panthers are significantly upgraded, in my opinion, playing with Andy Dalton as opposed to Bryce Young. So what do you think? What do you think that because the as soon as they benched Bryce Young, the Panthers got bet huge, right? The line moved a lot.
Yeah, it went from 7 to 5. Now it's settled at 5.5.
Yeah, I
But
would
now might
imagine you like the Raiders.
Dude, I love the Raiders. Love the Raiders this week. I think the Panthers had, for this particular game against the Raiders pass rush, they might have had a better chance with Bryce Young, a more mobile quarterback, because Andy Dalton is just going to be a statue back there. He's going to get lit up by the Raiders because there's no offensive line.
So you're down. So you're downgrading the Panthers off of the.
I think they're equally as bad. I think Andy Dalton is definitely a better pass thrower.
I think Dalton's way better.
Yeah, definitely.
Way better.
But he is not mobile at all.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of quarterbacks aren't mobile.
I think he's going to get sacked 7 times. I think he'll take 7 sacks. And and I think Bryce Young probably would have been sacked 3 or 4 times and thrown 2 interceptions. So it's not a huge difference to me. I think the Raiders are going to blow them out. I really do. The Raiders are hyped for this game.
The Raiders are coming off the first win when trailing by 10 or more points in the fourth quarter since 2016. So they had lost 49 straight games when they were trailing by 10 points in the fourth quarter. And it's the third time the Ravens have blown a lead of 10 points or more in the fourth quarter since the start of 2022. So this question is really more about the Ravens. My question to you is, do you think that the Ravens actually have a problem blowing games? Or do you think that the way that they're that stat to me just says, oh, they're ahead by 10 or more than everybody else. So there's more opportunities for them to blow fourth quarter leads.
Yeah, I think it's more the latter.
Yeah.
The better teams are up by 10 points or more so much more often and have so many more opportunities. I'd be much more interested in what is their actual record when they're up by 10 and 10 or more going into the fourth quarter. Because they
blew 3 games. I bet you they're like 16 and 3 or something. Yeah, right. So it's just a goofy. I think that's just a goofy stat. But hey, huge win for the Raiders. It's pretty awesome.
I think it says more about the Raiders being different this year than they have been the last decade.
It's literally it's very different. It's the first time that they've done that since 2016. It's very different. Okay. Are the Chiefs actually as good as we thought that they were? I'm looking at the Chiefs and the 49ers. Obviously, those were my preseason predictions. I predicted a third Super Bowl match in 4 years. I think, like you brought up preseason, like when Brock Purdy's only getting paid $600K, the team you can put around him with Shanahan is the favorite to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. And then you have Mahomes, who's just a cheat code. So whatever team you put around him, he should be the favorite in the AFC. And I thought they upgraded everywhere so much that they should be the prohibitive favorites. But I don't really love what I'm watching. Like, they don't look much better than last year. I thought they would be much, much better. Here's a stat that from Mahomes' career, including playoffs, when he's trailing in the fourth quarter, he's 22-25, which is the best in basically the history of the league. So, like, if you're losing at any point in the fourth quarter as a quarterback in the history of this league, it's just really hard to win football games, and he still does. So I think I'm downgrading the Chiefs and just leaving Mahomes obviously as like kind of the catalyst for them still being the prohibitive favorite in the AFC. One of the things I thought was interesting about my perspective on the whole thing is, like, I watched Mahomes, like, what he threw a couple interceptions in the Bengals game, right? So the first one was The first one was a bad one, right? Like right into cover two, like just right into a linebacker dropping into coverage. And Purdy threw some bad ones in Minnesota as well. And I'm watching both those games, and I watch Mahomes throw a pick, and my mind immediately goes, whoa, like, like is everything like the world needs to be reshaped to accomplish, like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, move that guy out of the way. Like Mahomes doesn't throw interceptions. And then when Purdy throws an interception, I go, yeah, man, I knew he wasn't that good. And it's
Yeah.
like they're making the same play. I just wonder how much of our like lenses watching football is just confirmation bias on stuff that we already think about these guys. And basically, I'm saying all that to just say I think the Niners are better than the Chiefs. And I think they were better than the Chiefs last year. And, Mahomes pulled it out of the hat again and bloodbathed me in that Super Bowl game. And it's probably what will happen again, whatever. But I just think even though the Niners are 1-1 and they lost in Minnesota, I think the Niners are better than the Chiefs right now. I think if they played on a neutral field right now, if they weren't favorites, I would bet them. And I think they should be favorites. They just are. Obviously McCaffrey needs to be healthy, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Are the Chiefs as good as we thought they were?
That's a really good question. I find myself thinking the same thing. And coming into the season, my take on the Chiefs was going to be that they were going to play a style where they make the playoffs, don't really care about their record. They didn't really need home field advantage all through the playoffs last year. It helped to have it in the first game against the Dolphins. But they're going to try and just be healthy for the playoffs. Because last year, Kelsey was injured during the season, and he just looked like a shell of himself. This year is really interesting because Kelsey does not look nearly as good. He might just be playing into shape. He's had a different offseason than he's ever had.
Or they're just like saving him for the playoffs. Like he's like not like sandbagging exactly, but like kind of.
I mean, it kind of reminds me like hopefully what he's doing is what like Jokic used to do, where he would just show up out of shape, kind of Luka too, and just play they just like season starts and you're like, he looks terrible. But then like a couple weeks in, he looks great.
Yeah, so it's more of a Shaq. It's more of a Shaq thing than Shaq was the king of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that's what's happening and Kelsey by week 8 just looks great. I mean, he had one catch this weekend. And
yeah, I mean, no, he's been bad.
He's been terrible. And he just looks bad on the field.
Old and slow.
And he needs to be Travis Kelsey for this team to win another Super Bowl. Because you can't just replace him. He's been the go-to guy in every big situation.
I mean, he's been the best receiver in the NFL for the last like 5 years, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what it hinges on to me is Travis Kelsey. They're not going to be able to do it with the rookie Xavier Worthy. He was like not even in the game.
He's great. He's great as like a decoy, but it's really like it's Rashee Rice and Pacheco's now out for
Pacheco going down is a huge deal.
Yeah.
If Kelsey goes another 6 weeks playing his way into shape and he's not really effective on the field, they're going to lose some games. Like I want to bet against the Chiefs in the regular season games. I think we should be fading them as big favorites, like big time.
I'm gonna back them longer. I predicted coming into the season they're gonna be juggernauts. They have not looked like that to me, but with the shortened preseason, I'm gonna give them these first 2 weeks as like their preseason games. They still won on the field against two of the best teams in the league. So they're laying 3.5 at Atlanta next week on Sunday Night Football. And I don't think Atlanta's any good at all. They can't tackle. They can't pressure the quarterback. And I don't think the Eagles are that good either. And then I think the Chiefs go into Atlanta, blow them out. I'm fine laying the 3.5 one more time. I'm gonna say, okay, those first 2 weeks were preseason games and they still beat two of the best teams in the league. I shouldn't be downgrading them. Let's see if they beat the crap out of Atlanta next week in Atlanta, because that would be to me like if they just go blow those guys out, that's the Chiefs team that I want to see. If that game's close at all, I think I'm I think they're not the juggernaut that I predicted they would be.
See, my take is they will be by the time the playoffs roll around. They'll be the same team. But the regular season is when we should be betting against them, and then we should probably just pile on them every playoff game.
Yeah. Oh, I think we'll know. We'll know this week. Is like,
Yeah.
are they a regular season juggernaut or not? Because that's what I predicted, that they're going to be a regular season juggernaut. And now you're saying you've seen enough. You're downgrading them to getting ready for the postseason. And I'm saying let's see one more week. The other overreaction lines for week 3 that we can just do quickly. You pointed this out. The fishiest line of the week is the Titans are laying 3 to the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have to tell me to bet the Titans. I mean, dude, the Titans are you said this, that like every year I fall in love with a really bad team. 2 years ago it was the Bears. Last year it was the Patriots, and this year it's the Titans. I love them. They're so good. They're so good, and Will Levis is so bad. And why are they laying 3 to the Packers? I don't understand.
It's the fishiest line, right? That's the one I've already bet. I bet the tie. I was like, that's the fishiest line. That's almost always the right side.
Yeah.
Titans -3. And I love it.
I love it. Every series.
Yeah. I just think the Titans defense is really good.
Bro, they have talented players everywhere. Their whole team is talented.
He's our Mac Jones.
Worst. He's the worst.
He's our Mac Jones of last year.
Yeah.
And we're just going to keep riding him.
All right.
Hopefully he's more talented. He just makes these inexplicable dumb decisions.
Yeah. Did you watch the press conference post game?
No.
To me, he looks like the guy that really gets it and wants to get better. He's been bigger, stronger, faster, and more athletic than everyone his whole life. And so like when stuff breaks down, he's been used to just like doing that stuff. But I just think he's just kind of a ding dong. So he needs to stop doing that stuff. But having said that, we're gonna have the Titans this week. Chargers at Steelers. This is, I think, a really good spot for the Chargers. The Steelers are laying 2 in this game, and I think they've played Falcons week 1 and Broncos. I think they played 2 of the worst offenses in the league. 2 really bad offensive lines and 2 not good defensive lines. So just don't think. I'm not a big believer that the Steelers are awesome. I think they're just the Steelers again, and they'll win when they'll. So I think this is a good spot. I think we'll have some Chargers in this one.
Yeah, I think betting Harbaugh here as a dog is great. I think the Chargers are still undervalued. I think the Steelers are overvalued right now, just with that 2-0 record.
Yeah,
they've scored 1 offensive touchdown all year.
Yeah,
and they've. I was actually looking at props. This is one prop I actually like for this game that I think could potentially hit, like one of the long shot props. It hits every 2 or 3 times a year. Is no touchdown scored in this game. I think there's a potential. The Chargers are going to run the ball probably 40 plus times, and just eat the clock. And I think the game plan for the Steelers is going to be similar, where they just don't want Fields to lose them this game with a fumble, with an interception, whatever it is. And that's the exact game the Chargers played against the Raiders, was just run the ball, don't make any mistakes, and wait. And hopefully the Raiders will make a mistake. And that's exactly what happened.
This game is going to be basically like Army Navy.
In Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's just they're just going to run.
Punt. Who's going to make a mistake?
Run, field goal, run, field goal.
Whoever scores, for this particular bet, the biggest sweat usually is the first half. If nobody scores a touchdown in the first half and it's 6-3, it becomes even more of a field position, don't make a mistake kind of game where it just turns into field goals even more than touchdowns, because everyone's afraid to make a mistake in the red zone. Everyone's afraid to make a mistake in their own field position. And it just becomes so much more likely that no touchdowns are scored. So I think this is going to be a really low scoring, slug it out, Tomlin Harbaugh type of game. And I love the Chargers getting points because it could easily be a 1 or a 2 point game. And definitely am on the under. I've already bet the under. And I think I'm going to bet no touchdown scored. It's usually 50-1. In a game with a total under 40, it's usually about 50 or 60-1. So I think that's a great prop bet for this game.
And then the last thing I have is I think we should fade the Bears again. I think the Colts were made to look bad in Green Bay by a great coaching staff and in a very tough spot. And the Bears keep miraculously covering and being in games they have no business being in. They're not good. Caleb's not good yet. I'm worried about him. I think he's got potential as a pocket quarterback, but he's not athletic enough to do the stuff he did in college. He's just not fast. Like he's more athletic than Derek Carr, but he's not even close to Mahomes. Like Mahomes is way more athletic than him, way more. So I'm fading the Bears until they don't cover like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Like they're not going to be a good team against the spread or on the field this year. They're not. I'm convinced of it. So
yeah,
the Colts are -1. I think Steichen and the Colts will win that game easily.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a double fade scenario. Like everybody's off the Colts. Everyone who bet the Colts in Green Bay
literally everyone
wiped out.
Yeah.
And then people who bet the Bears again covered miraculously, and they'll probably just like, oh, if you bet the Bears week 1 and you're like, I guess I'll just bet them again week 2, and you covered again, a lot of people are just going to like fire the Bears again. Like maybe they're just going to keep covering, and it's obviously the wrong side. Betting the Bears is the wrong side. This team is not very good. And I think the Colts, this is a must-win game. The Colts are a team who expect to make the playoffs coming into the season.
Yeah.
And starting 0-2, this is like the biggest must-win game. I like the Colts in a blowout in this.
The Giants had the Giants are the first team in the history of the league to lose in regulation. So it's happened one other time.
Yeah.
But that team lost in overtime.
Okay.
So they scored if you score 3 touchdowns, you can't lose to a team that doesn't score any touchdowns. It's a mathematical impossibility. So the Giants scored 3 times. They went into the game with no kicker. They couldn't get an extra point. They had 18. The Redskins kicked 7 field goals, and they won 21-18. And I'm so glad that I really wanted to bet the Giants +1.5 in that game, and we didn't do it. And it would have been back-to-back weeks with like historical bad beats. I believe it's the second time in the history of the league that a team lost a game where they scored 3 touchdowns and the other team had only field goals. In the previous one, it was in overtime. This is the first time it's ever happened in regulation.
Yeah, it was also in like the 90s or something. It was like the 90s Vikings. Mm-hmm. It's like football is completely different. Like so crazy. It was like 1,301. Like you don't lose if you score 3 touchdowns and you give up 0. But I guess if you just punt on extra points, you just go to the game without a kicker, an injured kicker, instead of just replacing him with anybody. Their first touchdown. So
or just having a plan for 2-point conversions beforehand. Like, like even just have 3 plays ready to go and get one of the 2-point conversions, you win the game. It's just
clearly they had no plan because they opted to have their punter attempt the first PAT, which he missed. And then they're like, uh-oh, what do? We have no plan. Let's just go for 2. Horribly run team, man. Those dudes, you're right, or they're going to get fired.
The Giant. I thought they were coaching for their jobs last week. It's really this week. If they I saw they're getting a bunch of points from somebody. If they lose to the Browns, I actually just think if they just lose that game, they lose in Cleveland this week, I think they fire. I think they fire everybody.
That one's going to be ugly, I think.
I love the Giants +6.
It's just to me, it depends. We saw it last year with the Chargers, actually, where it was like a game where coach is coaching for his job, and the team just like laid down on the field. The Raiders scored like 60 points, and it was like, dude, they want the coach out of there.
Yeah. So do you think
that depends? I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what the Giants players in the
that was a very interesting situation. I think that coach had lost that locker room to such a severe place. But yeah, that's an interesting point.
This is different too, because I don't think Dable is so bad where I thought.
No, I think he's good. I think he's a good coach.
It's the ownership. It's the drafting. It's re-signing Daniel Jones. It's
trading Saquon, who's obviously still a star. Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, their front office is bad. Okay, and then the Eagles. The Eagles somehow lost a game that, I mean, I watched every play of that game last night. I did not think for 1 second that the Falcons were a better team than the Eagles. And I mean, they couldn't I was watching the Manning cast, so I was watching Belichick and them. The Falcons D-line got no pressure. They could not tackle. They can't really what do the Falcons do good? Like, what are they good
offensive line, that's it. And it's not even great. It's like that's the strength of their team is their offensive line, and it's not
and it's like middle of the pack. Yeah,
I mean it's pretty good. It's better than a lot of teams.
I don't think the Eagles have a clue what they're doing. I think they have a bottom.
It's coaching.
Yeah, they have bad coaching.
This is something that I'm just gonna like completely hammer home every week, I think, is how much everyone loves the Eagles and their offense. And I just don't. I think they're so overrated. I think like Hurts didn't complete a pass over 20 yards. He looks terrible throwing the ball deep. AJ Brown makes a big difference. When he's throwing the ball to AJ Brown, it looks different because he can just go get the ball.
Well, he just throws into double coverage and it's still a good play. Yeah.
And AJ Brown can just go get it. So, but like in that game, they should have scored so many more points.
Yeah.
To me, I watch Hurts and I watch him look for his first read. And if it's not there, he just dunks it off. He's not going through a progression. Or he'll just tuck it and run, or he'll scramble right and just throw it out of bounds. But to me, I don't see him as this elite top 10 quarterback. I really, really don't. I think they're going to struggle. I really do. Especially against good teams, especially against a pass rush. The Falcons gave him all day to throw. And there were so many times
he had all day to throw. It was driving me nuts. Yeah,
I know. And every time he threw it deep or like in the red zone into the end zone, there were so many passes that almost got intercepted that the only person who could have possibly caught the ball was the defender. And we saw it against the Packers, man. The Packers have a pretty good pass defense, and he threw 2 picks. He almost threw 4. I just don't think he's good. I know I'm on the outside. It's not a popular opinion, but I think Hurts is not this elite quarterback.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out, I think, because they're going to, if he's not elite, they're going to miss the playoffs. Here's their schedule. They have this Saints game is now huge. They've got the Saints on fire. So they play at New Orleans. They got to play the Browns and the Bengals. They got to play the Cowboys twice. They got to play at the Ravens. They play the Steelers. Like they're going to have to, Hurts is going to have to be good to get to 10 wins this year. Their defense stinks. Their defense and their coaching staff stinks. So
I think their coaching staff, I think Sirianni cost them that game last night.
Yeah.
It's like there are multiple things, but that final sequence where they threw the pass to Barkley. Of course, he should have caught it. Of course, it should have been a first down and the game would be over. But it was an unnecessary play call. The Falcons clearly could not stop Barkley. They could not stop the run. He was unstoppable. And 3rd and 3, you need a first down to ice the game. Give it to Barkley 100%. Even if they stop him for 4th and 1, you have the unstoppable tush push. He blew that game, calling anything other than a run there. It was just Falcons are out of timeouts. I thought that was really, really bad and really just unnecessary. Just an unnecessary, not smart play call.
Yeah, it was pretty goofy. I mean, I'm glad they lost because
they deserve to lose. They deserve to lose that game.
They deserve to lose. They're the way better team, and they deserve to lose.
You run that play, and then the defense. We talked about this earlier. The defense went out there, and they just looked like they were not expecting to go back on the field. There was no game, no plan. They just let Cousins do whatever he wanted. It was really, really bizarre.
It was like they sent the defense out and were like, "I don't like the game's actually already over. Like, just go like play like a 5th quarter. Like, have fun out there, guys." It's really bizarre. You're the best 10 teams in the NFL to you right now.
Oh yeah, I actually did a little different where I'm going to pick the division winners and who I think the 3 wild card teams are going to be. So it's like a total of going to be 14 teams instead of the 10 best. But just starting with the AFC East, I had originally picked. I wasn't sure. I knew the Bills were going to be good, and I thought the Jets were also going to be really good. I think after 2 weeks of football, I'm ready to say I think the Bills will definitely win the division, and the Jets will maybe be a wild card team. I don't think they're nearly as bad as their week 1 performance, but I don't think they're going to be nearly as good as the Bills. Josh Allen is just so good, and Aaron Rodgers is not as mobile. The Jets defense just isn't quite as good as I thought it was going to be, and neither is their O-line. So I'm downgrading the Jets after 2 weeks of football. So I got the Bills winning the East. The West, I had the Chiefs. I still have the Chiefs. The North, I had the Bengals. And the biggest question mark, I think, for us was what the Steelers were going to do this year. We knew that their defense was going to be really good, but we had no idea what the offense was going to look like. We kind of thought games that Fields started were going to be a disaster for the offense. He's been good enough to win these first 2 games, but neither of us like the Falcons coming into the season, and neither of us like the Broncos. So I'm not overreacting to the Steelers being 2-0, and I'm not overreacting to the Bengals starting 0-2. I still have the Bengals winning the North. We've seen them come back from a slow start. We saw them rattle off, I think, 13 straight wins that one year. I believe, maybe not quite 13.
Including the playoffs, you mean, when they went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah. So I'm sticking with the Bengals. They're kind of a mess. I don't love what's going on with the team, but I'm trying really hard not to overreact they lost a really tough game against the Chiefs. I still think the Bengals are the best team in the division. And one of my bigger kind of upsets for the whole season was that the Ravens were going to miss the playoffs. And I still think nobody thought that. And I still think the Ravens have too big of issues with their offensive line, and they rely too much on Lamar. I also thought losing Patrick Queen was a big deal. So I'm sticking with the Bengals winning the North, and the Ravens and Steelers both missing the playoffs. Then in the South, I've got the Texans preseason. I still love the Texans. They haven't really had a good a game where they've played well on offense and on defense. They had a great offensive week 1 and a pretty good defensive week 2, but they haven't put it all together yet. 2-0 still. I love the Texans. Wild card teams. I'm going Raiders are going to have the most wins for any team that doesn't win the division. They'll be the number 1 wild card team. that is another one of my long shot bets from the start of the season. I have the Raiders 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. And I think this team is really, really good. The week one loss to the Chargers was really surprising to me, and they just got completely outcoached. However, I think they're a team that's going to build and get better every week. And they went into Baltimore and played a really, really sound football game after making a bunch of mistakes week one. They played almost flawlessly. Minshew made one bad throw all game, which resulted in an interception. But he has the highest completion percentage in the NFL. He has the most completions, and he's tied second in passing yards. And if Minshew plays well, this defense is so stacked. This offense has so much talent. We saw what Brock Bowers did this week, 9 for 9, almost 100 yards. I think Brock Bowers is going to be the best tight end in football by like halfway through the season. He's incredible. Devontae Adams has not slowed down. He's not fallen off. He looks amazing. The biggest thing for the Raiders is the offensive line. They have had some injuries. Jackson Powers-Johnson has not played yet. I think if they were to trade for a starting offensive lineman, just one, and then they get Jackson Powers-Johnson back, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender because their defense is so good and they have so much talent. Minshew's playing great. They just need a little bit of help on the offensive line. So Raiders are going to be right in the mix. I think they could challenge the Chiefs for the division if they were to do something like that. But I got Raiders. Then I'm the other team I'm upgrading. The one team I'm upgrading, who I had as a terrible team coming to the season, who I now have as definitely a wild card team, are the Chargers. Harbaugh has already turned it around. Their offensive line is great. Their defensive line is still really good. Their pass rush is great. And they're just going to run the ball and control the clock, play field position, and not make mistakes. With Herbert as kind of like he's going to be the best game manager kind of quarterback who can still at any moment run some sort of play action and just bomb the ball down the field for a touchdown. This team's going to be really good. They're going to beat some really good teams. And Harbaugh is every bit as good as he was with the 49ers. That's kind of what the 49ers did. They just ran the ball 75% of their plays, played good defense. And I think the Chargers are a team that everyone should watch right now. They should be on everybody's list as a playoff team. And then for the last wild card spot, I think it's going to come down to the Jets or the Steelers potentially, or the Ravens potentially. I think the Colts are going to be out. I had the Colts originally as a fringe playoff team. I'm going to personally go with the Jets. I think the Jets will do enough, win enough close games. They have a really easy schedule for the first half of the season. So I think they're going to they're going to win a lot of these games, and hopefully for them, build some momentum and fix some things that haven't been great so far, like the offensive line. And I think by mid-season, they'll be right in the mix, and then they have tough games coming up. So I'm going Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, Texans, then wildcard teams, Raiders, Chargers, and Jets. Then in the NFC, my sleeper pick of the year, my shocker pick, was the Commanders to win the division, mostly because I just was so down on the Eagles, down on the Cowboys, definitely down on the Giants. For the most part, I'm not changing anything. I think the Commanders are going to be, I think Jaden is going to be really, really good. And he just needs to progress week by week. I think he's kind of what I've seen. He's going with his first read, and if it's not there, he's kind of running the ball. That's not surprising from a rookie quarterback. but he's really good. He's not making mistakes. He's not forcing anything. He's not losing them any games. And I think that's a team that could shock a lot of people if he progresses week by week. I think their offense could end up being good enough to win the division. But it's a long shot. I'm sticking with it though. I just am down on the Cowboys, down on the Eagles. And then in the West, I went Niners. I'm sticking with the Niners. I think they're the best team in the NFC. Don't care that they lost to the Vikings this week. They're still really well coached and they have a ton of talent. In the North, I had the Lions, sticking with the Lions. And then in the South, I had the Bucks. That division is shaping up to be interesting, right? I didn't see the Saints starting like this. I was very down on Derek Carr, very down on Dennis Allen. I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFC. I'm still sticking with the Bucks. I think they look really good. I think Baker looks great, and I don't have any confidence in the Saints maintaining this. Week 1, I wasn't shocked that they slaughtered the Panthers. I was very surprised by this Cowboys upset. But again, I've been down on the Cowboys, so I'm not going to overreact to the Saints. I still have the Saints missing the playoffs. My wild card teams were the Rams, Packers, and Seahawks. I'm going to leave the Packers in there, assuming Jordan Love's coming back shortly. Seahawks look like a great wild card pick. I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs. They might even give the Niners a run for their money. And I also think I was right about the Rams. But these injuries are just too much. They're like we saw in week 1 what a healthy Rams team might look like. Losing Puka Nacua, losing Cooper Kupp, the Rams are sunk. So I'm swapping the Rams out and I'm going to put in the Arizona Cardinals. I think this team can score a lot of points. I think their defense is good enough to be in a lot of games. And I think they're going to win a lot of games. I think they're going to be a wild card team in the NFC. And I'm putting them in over the Saints. I don't believe in the Saints, and I think Arizona's really good. So I got Commanders, Niners, Lions, Bucks, Cardinals, Packers, Seahawks. Those are my playoff teams. So I have Saints missing, I have the Eagles missing, and I have the Cowboys missing.